My deskmate saved me. Every day, countless people paid attention to the boy sitting next to me. The most beautiful girls in class in the year, even the most stunning in the entire school, vied for his attention. Yet my quiet, aloof deskmate had no interest in any of them. When confronted by these girls, he would brusquely utter a single word. Scram! He was truly ruthless and infuriating. But the moment he turned to me, he would corner me against the wall, his deep-set eyes revealing a possessive, pleading look. Please, don't like anyone else. I was just an utterly ordinary person. My family background was unremarkable, my intelligence average, and my appearance not bad at all. In short, I was pleasant to look at. My life simply repeated itself every day. School, then home, then staying home. Everything passed quietly, each day indistinguishable from the last. I always thought my life would continue this way until one day I realized something had changed. It all started in 11th grade when our teacher assigned me a new deskmate. His name was Lucius, the top student, the most handsome, and academic ace who led the entire year. He was reserved, melancholic, always exuding a cold aloofness from everyone around him. But the undeniable fact was, he was too handsome and too brilliant. No matter how distant he seemed, he was still the object of countless girls' attention. Except for me. I had absolutely no interest in him whatsoever. My secret crush was Asher, the hot boy from the class next door, a guy always brimming with energy and smiles on the football field. Perhaps that's why the teacher chose me to be Lucius's deskmate. Why not another boy? Because he had an obsession with cleanliness. If anyone so much as touched him, his face would instantly contort as if he'd lost something precious. At this age, everyone is impulsive, and a little temper could easily lead to a physical altercation. With girls, he might be somewhat lenient, he wouldn't use his hands or feet, but he wouldn't hesitate to scold them. Thus, I became the ideal choice to pair with Lucius. In front of everyone, I always acted foolish and spoke little. During the days sitting next to Lucius, we maintained a clear distance, living peacefully. No conversations, no greetings. His textbooks on the desk were neatly arranged, never disturbed. Despite his difficult nature, every school day, new letters would appear on his desk. Every single time, he would directly put them into his bag. At first, he'd throw them into the trash can, but after someone picked them up and read them aloud in class, he started tucking them into his bag instead, perhaps to take them home and destroy them. There was never a shortage of people pursuing Lucius. Recently, I noticed something very strange. Every so often, a different girl would constantly appear before him, trying to attract his attention. But each time, she would fail, and then she would seemingly transform into a completely different person, her personality radically changed. With an indescribable feeling, I merely stood by, silently observing them. Lucius, I don't understand this math problem. Could you explain it to me? The speaker was the class belle, her beauty like a daffodil. She stood beside Lucius's desk, placing her book on his with a touch of shy embarrassment. Lucius indifferently raised his eyes, responding coldly, I don't know. It was a blatant lie, his math scores were always perfect. I had never seen that change. The smile on the class belle's face stiffened slightly. Oh, really? That's okay. I saw her maintain her polite smile and quickly leave. Judging by her eyes, I guess she wouldn't give up so easily. As expected, during the afternoon PE class, I saw her carrying a bottle of water approaching Lucius, who was resting under a tree. Lucius, are you thirsty? Have some water. I'm not thirsty. Lucius flatly refused, then bent down to pick up his own water bottle next to him, opened it, and took a sip. I briefly saw the class belle's hand clench tighter. It's okay, I'll just leave it here. Drink it when you're thirsty, okay? She maintained her perfect smile, then turned and walked away. A cool breeze blew through the leaves, stirring a few strands of Lucius's fringe, revealing his high forehead. His facial features were sharp, as if meticulously sculpted. At an age that should have been full of vitality, his eyes were instead shrouded in a dark, lifeless gloom. Suddenly, he leaned over and turned his head to look at me. I nonchalantly averted my gaze, pretending not to see anything, simply looking up silently at the blue sky and white clouds. PE class ended, and everyone gathered to dismiss. Suddenly, a cry of "ah" rang out. Our beautiful class president lost her balance and stumbled forward, right in front of Lucius, but she had underestimated his indifference. Lucius merely shifted slightly to the side, letting her fall sprawling to the ground, her arms limp, not even making a move to help her up. The class president's fall hurt so much that her eyes turned red. Her fake tumble had become a real one. Lucius looked down at her from above, a cold smile curling on his lips, as if watching a clown. From that day on, the class president finally behaved. She returned to her old self, no longer clinging to Lucius. At the podium, the teacher lectured enthusiastically. Beside me, Lucius was diligently filling a page with formulas I couldn't comprehend, utterly baffling. I noticed that whenever he wrote these symbols, his aura completely transformed. A rare spark of light flickered in his eyes. Today was the day of the monthly exam results announcement, and the entire school was buzzing. Lucius, who had held the top spot for so long, finally had a rival. The rankings displayed two names at the top. Next to Lucius's was an unfamiliar girl, an unexpected phenomenon who surprised everyone. The whole class started to whisper and discuss, everyone curious about this new top scorer. Lucius remained silent in his seat, unfazed. As for me, I looked at my corrected math test in front of me, a score just enough to pass. I sighed softly. My sigh caught Lucius's attention. He glanced at my score, not with disdain or triumph, but with a perfectly ordinary look. Despite that, I still quietly flipped my test paper face down. Compared to his perfectly absolute score, I was genuinely envious. The gap between people was truly vast. After the break, as I returned to class from the sports field, I saw a girl blocking Lucius's path. Her hair was tied in a high ponytail, her face oval-shaped, as beautiful as a proud rose. "You're Lucius, aren't you?" She lifted her face, her eyes sparkling with determination. "I'm the top scorer in this month's test. I want you to know that in the upcoming exam, I will definitely surpass you." The girl, as fresh as a proud rose, challenged Lucius. Lucius looked directly into her eyes. I thought he would be captivated by her beauty, but he wasn't. A flash of impatience crossed his eyes. He didn't even bother to say a word, simply brushed past her and walked straight up the stairs. The girl immediately blushed under the curious gazes around her. She clenched her teeth, calling loudly after Lucius's retreating back. "Lucius, don't underestimate me. I will definitely win against you." From then on, Rose seemed to continuously, accidentally, run into Lucius. Each time, she would look at him with arrogance, her words full of stubbornness and resolve. "I will definitely crush you." It was clearly an attempt to provoke him, but Lucius completely ignored her. The second monthly exam approached, and everyone was eagerly anticipating it, hoping to see Rose defeat Lucius. But the results stunned the entire school. Lucius still held the #1 position. All his subjects received maximum scores. Even his literature essay was graded perfectly. Rose, meanwhile, only ranked second. After the results were announced, Rose looked at Lucius, biting her lip. "It was just luck. You only beat me because of your perfect essay score. I won't give up." "Just you wait." This time, Lucius responded to her for the first time. "Annoying. What you plan to do has nothing to do with me." "Nonsense." His eyes were dark, his tone chilling. Rose was stunned, then trembled with anger. From then on, Rose seemed to disappear, no longer appearing. I was a little curious, wondering who would be the next person to try and approach Lucius. After that, several more girls came, each using different methods to attract his attention, but none succeeded. Instead, all of them received only one word: scram. Among those beautiful girls, one in particular impressed me. A girl as gentle as a white jasmine flower. Unlike the others, she was a new transfer student and immediately sought out Lucius. For the entire first week, she remained completely silent. However, I was certain she was looking for the right opportunity, because on the very day of her self-introduction, her gaze had paused on Lucius for a moment. That day, Lucius and I were on duty. A mischievous male student casually took the chocolate bar from Lucius's desk. It was a gift from someone, but Lucius hadn't eaten it, just left it there. The other student laughed and said, "Lucius, someone gave you food again. Are you going to eat it?" Lucius, wiping the board, didn't turn his head, responding indifferently, "No." Immediately after, the boy unwrapped it. "I'm hungry. If you're not eating it, I will." Lucius turned around just as he saw the boy put the chocolate into his mouth. His face instantly darkened. He raised his hand and precisely threw an eraser, hitting the other boy, chalk dust flying everywhere. "What's wrong with you? Just because I'm not eating it doesn't mean you're allowed to touch it." And so, the two came to blows. The next day, both were called to the homeroom teacher to clarify the situation. The other boy stubbornly insisted that Lucius had struck first, while Lucius remained completely silent about the chocolate bar. The teacher demanded Lucius apologize, but he remained silent, refusing to admit fault. Finally, the teacher resorted to the strongest measure, one every student feared, inviting parents. Immediately, Lucius clenched his fist. I could feel his anger. I didn't understand why he wouldn't explain about the chocolate. Boy's thoughts were truly baffling. After a moment of thought, I decided to help him clarify everything. After all, we were desk mates. Just as I was about to raise my hand, Jasmine suddenly stood up. "Teacher, Lucius isn't at fault." She then recounted the entire incident from yesterday, helping Lucius prove his innocence. I looked at her, finding it quite interesting. It turned out she had been waiting for this opportunity. Half a month later, Jasmine left the school. Her failure quite surprised me. I wasn't sure what had happened during that time. I had even seen her and Lucius eating at the same table in the cafeteria, so I thought she was special. That day, on my way home from school, I saw her go into a small alley. I remember it vividly. It was a dead-end alley. While waiting for the street vendor to make a fried cake, I had stood there. After the cake was cooked and I had eaten it, she still hadn't reappeared. Hesitating for a moment, I decided to walk towards that alley. I walked straight, and on the left side there was a turn. Just as I rounded the corner, I saw Jasmine with her back to me, talking to a tall, emotionless wall. Unlike her usual calm demeanor, she was angrily muttering, "Damn it, I acted for so long and it was useless. Could it be that he can read minds?" He dared to tell me straight to my face while we were eating that I was no different from anyone else approaching him for personal gain, that he could tell right away. I clearly held back as much as I could. Before coming here, I'd pored over so many materials about salvation, synthesizing countless lessons from predecessors. And yet, it still didn't work. This male lead has SSS-level difficulty. System, I give up on this mission. I hid behind the corner, astonished to hear those words. Male lead conquest system? Everything suddenly clicked in my mind. It seemed I had just discovered something. I slowly walked out of the alley. Under the twilight, a familiar silhouette appeared in my sight. A young man wearing a white cap, its brim obscuring his face, was walking on the road ahead. His pale skin made the dark red bruise at the corner of his lips even more apparent. Suddenly, he turned his head and glanced at me, his eyes cold. I looked directly at Lucius, maintaining a calm expression. Between him and me, there seemed to be an invisible distance. We merely glanced at each other, then quickly turned away, each going our separate ways. Jasmine's words still echoed in my ears, and my lips curved slightly. How truly interesting. On a lush green branch by the road, a plump tabby cat squatted, observing my retreating figure, but I was completely unaware. The next day, Jasmine said goodbye to our classmates. As she stepped down from the podium and walked past Lucius, her face showed clear regret and helplessness. The wound at the corner of Lucius's mouth was less swollen, but still bore the marks of a fight. Jasmine still hadn't given up. She placed a small bandage on Lucius's desk. I didn't understand why she'd put a bandage on a healed wound. To look more dashing, I shook my head. Lucius lifted his book, gave it a slight shake, and the bandage gently fell to the floor. Jasmine's face froze, then she returned to her seat in annoyance. After class, I actively sought her out and placed a small cheesecake on her desk. "Here, consider it a farewell gift." She was stunned for a moment, then hesitantly asked, "I'm Stella H. Letter 1EA1. "Oh, you're Lucius's desk mate. Thank you for the gift." I smiled, not at all surprised that she didn't know me. In class, my existence seemed very faint. I always remained silent. "After school, let's go eat something together, okay?" "Huh." My sudden enthusiasm startled her a little. "I'll wait for you after school. We can go together." As soon as I finished speaking, the bell rang for class. Not giving Jasmine a chance to refuse, I returned to my seat. During today's literature class, the teacher had a sore throat, so he handed out a test for the whole class to do on the spot. About halfway through, I heard a rustling sound next to me. It seemed Lucius was looking for something. His pen must have run out of ink. I heard the pen nib scratch harshly against the paper. Glancing over, I saw his face contorted in annoyance. I took out a box of pen refills from my bag, intending to offer one, but then I remembered his severe obsession with cleanliness. I paused for a moment. Under the desk, I pushed the box of refills towards him, my fingertip accidentally brushing against the hem of his uniform. Lucius looked at me, silent for a few seconds, then took a refill from the box. I heard a muffled, "Thanks," which sounded a bit cold. After school, I invited Jasmine to a barbecue restaurant, and we went together. She looked a little bewildered. Although she had moved here half a month ago, this was the first time I had initiated a conversation and even invited her out to eat. She must have been very surprised. "You're so pretty. I bet a lot of people in class like you. I've wanted to get to know you for a long time, but I didn't expect you'd be moving so soon. Thinking about you leaving before we even had a chance to talk makes me feel really regretful. I hope you don't find me annoying." After I explained the reason for my sudden urgency, Jasmine seemed to relax, looking much more comfortable. She appeared very happy with my compliment and began to chat openly. "Where do you live? Will we have a chance to meet again?" "My home is in H1E1 H1E3 I town. We." Jasmine was eating happily when her expression suddenly changed. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand. "Oh no, I mean my home is in City C, but I'll probably be studying abroad later, so it'll probably be hard to meet again." "That's a shame then," I replied with a smile, seeing her regretful expression. After eating, Jasmine and I said goodbye and each went our separate ways. It was completely dark, but the streets were still bustling. It was Friday, and many students were on the road. From across the street, I unexpectedly saw Lucius in a forest-themed restaurant. He was wearing a black staff uniform, busy carrying trays between tables. I was a little skeptical. Could someone as obsessed with cleanliness as him be working part-time as a waiter? I watched him for a while longer, about to leave, when I saw 4 or 5 people with hostile expressions heading towards the restaurant. Lucius stepped out from the restaurant and was surrounded by the group, almost pushed into an alley. I frowned slightly and pulled out my phone to dial 911. Following his figure as it disappeared into the dark alley, I quietly trailed behind. The alley was deep, the darkness ahead like a monster waiting to swallow everything. I didn't dare to get close, only hearing the sounds of a fight echoing from within. A moment later, the police arrived and rushed into the alley. About 5 minutes later, they led the group out. Lucius had a few injuries on his face. The others weren't much better, appearing seriously wounded and struggling to walk. The crowd of onlookers grew. Lucius lowered his eyelashes, his tall, slender figure standing resolute in the night, ignoring the whispers. The only difference was that his eyes, hidden in the shadows, grew even deeper. After the group was escorted away, Lucius was only questioned briefly before being allowed to return to the restaurant. I didn't linger. I immediately turned and left. As soon as I got home, I quickly searched for a place name online. H1E1 H1E3 I town didn't appear on any map. Perhaps Jasmine's hometown wasn't from the same world as mine. Outside the window, the night sky was filled with stars. I looked up, silently admiring the distant constellations. The next morning, walking into class, I found a pen refill on my desk. The same brand, the familiar plastic packaging, I recognized it immediately as Lucius's. It was really just a small pen refill. I had originally intended to give it to him, but since he returned it, we were even. It was better to maintain a polite distance. Even though Jasmine had left, those wanting to approach Lucius didn't seem to decrease. As his desk mate, even I could feel the discomfort building up in him. That irritation spread to me as well. I originally just wanted to watch the show from the sidelines, but I found it hard to avoid getting involved. Some asked for help, others wanted to probe for information. I was like a soft cotton ball, but all requests were politely declined by me. It was just really a bit annoying. The next class was a memorization test. I had read the ancient text many times but still only vaguely remembered it, so I tried to cram more. If I didn't know it, I'd be punished with copying. I secretly glanced at the top student next to me with admiration. Just as I turned my head, I suddenly saw a female student unexpectedly tumble towards him. Lucius reacted very quickly, pushing her in the opposite direction. He did it so fast that he lost his balance and fell sharply backward. Just as I turned around, a sharp pain shot up my nose. I had been hit by the back of his head. Lucius turned his face, a look of astonishment clearly visible. Then I heard the commotion around us, clearly seeing his eyes suddenly contract. A warm, hot liquid poured from my lips. A strong metallic smell spread across my tongue. I had a nosebleed. I quickly rummaged through my bag for tissues to cover my nose, jumping up from my seat without even looking at the culprit, and headed straight for the infirmary. I sat there, waiting for the bleeding to stop. A figure stood blocking the doorway. Lucius stood tall, blocking all the light. He walked in and paid for my medicine, which I accepted without ceremony. I just silently watched his every move. "I'm sorry." Lucius stood directly in front of me. Since I was sitting, I had to look up at him. I nodded, taking it as acceptance of his apology. On the way back to class, we walked a short distance apart. I secretly watched the long shadow cast by the sun behind me. Not liking to be followed, I quickened my pace. As we passed the basketball court, Lucius suddenly lunged and pulled me back. A ball just whizzed past in front of us, narrowly missing us. A boy ran over to pick up the ball, quickly apologizing. A strange sensation on my wrist made me look down, seeing Lucius's hand gripping mine. I frowned slightly. He immediately released my hand, pressing his lips together. "Be careful." "Thanks," I replied, then continued towards the classroom. As I reached the turn in the staircase, as expected, I saw him head into the restroom. Of course, someone so obsessed with cleanliness would surely be trying to wash his hands thoroughly. In the restroom, water flowed continuously over his palms. In the mirror, the boy bowed his head, staring blankly as the water streamed through his fingers. Back in class, I sat for quite a while before Lucius returned to his seat. My nose still hurt a little, but fortunately, the memorization test was over, and I felt relieved. Finally, dismissal time arrived. The moment the bell rang, I grabbed my bag and left. At the entrance to my street, under the year-round lush banyan tree, a plump golden cat was squatting, its large, bell-like eyes staring intently at me. I didn't know where this cat came from. Its plump, honey-colored fur made it look just like a house cat. Recently, I'd been encountering it frequently. I wasn't sure if it was just my imagination, but every time I saw this cat, it seemed to be watching me very closely, just like now, its eyes glued to me. I wasn't particularly fond of cats and never intended to approach or tease it. When night fell, after showering, as I opened my room door, the scene before my eyes made my heart pound. A cat's head poked out from the window, behind it the murky darkness. Its gaze was fixed on me, just like a scene from a horror movie. When it saw me, the cat leaped into the room. Gathering my wits, I approached it. It turned out to be the chubby golden cat that often lay under the banyan tree at the alley entrance. I felt a slight headache, wondering how to get rid of it. "Hello, Stella H1EA1. Am I imagining things? I just heard a cat talking." "I am the messenger of God, Agi." It introduced itself. The golden cat, Agi, revealed a secret about this world, about Lucius. Every world has a protagonist, and the protagonist is the center of its existence. Their every action affects the world's operation. In the current world, Lucius is the pivotal character. Normally, Lucius is a genius carrying deep emotional wounds caused by his family. He despises life, is melancholic, and always solitary. Such a protagonist, immersed in darkness, should have met a warm, sun-like female lead, someone who would save him, heal the wounds in his soul, and together they would move towards a bright future, creating a fulfilling ending. However, fate took an unexpected turn due to the appearance of a transmigrator. The original female lead was replaced by this transmigrator, but she fell in love with a supporting male character. She no longer followed the original plot, resulting in the world's collapse. The deities attempted to fix it, but the problem persisted. Lucius never loved the female lead. He still followed his destined path, reached the pinnacle, created a new era, but then ended his own life just as he stood at the peak of glory. The world shattered once more. The deities tried to salvage the situation many times, but still couldn't prevent Lucius's suicide. Constant recreation had distorted the world. In the most recent reincarnation, the deity discovered that the emotional connection with the female lead had been completely removed by Lucius's will. The female lead no longer existed. Therefore, the deity devised a plan: summon task doers from other worlds to this one. They would attempt to influence Lucius, replacing the role of the original female lead. But because the world had undergone so many collapses and reconstructions, Lucius seemed to have vaguely realized something. He was extremely sensitive to outsiders, always guessing the hidden motives behind their appearances, and was exceedingly wary. Many had come and then retreated in failure. The golden cat's mouth opened and closed. I listened in silence, a little surprised, but not overly shocked. Jasmine had already made me suspicious before that. "So why are you telling me this story?" I looked directly at the chubby cat calling itself Agi, cutting it off. Agi paused for a second, seemingly not understanding my composure. "Because we need your help." Just as I thought, secrets like this aren't something people hear for free. "I don't want to." I refused resolutely without hesitation. "You haven't even heard my proposal yet." Agi raised a paw. I got up, sat at my desk, and opened a book with no intention of paying it any more attention. Immediately, Aji jumped onto the desk, plopping down and obscuring all the words on the page. If you don't help, this world will continue to repeat the process of collapse and reconstruction, eventually disappearing completely. That destructive power could even affect the safety of other worlds. Little girl, you must save the world. The world is counting on you. I looked at the cat fur scattered all over my desk and slowly said, "Didn't you assign this task to others already?" But as you can see, they didn't even get a chance to approach him, Aji sighed. So why do you think I can do it? Aji explained, "The reason I sought you out is because I noticed you also have faint signs of awakening. I know you discovered Jasmine's secret. I've been observing you for a while and feel you're very suitable for this mission. A few reasons for this are, first, you sit at the same desk as Lucius, giving you a positional advantage. Furthermore, Lucius shows more politeness towards you than other girls. Because you are not a stranger, he will be less suspicious. That's an advantage in terms of relationship." In terms of timing, Aji said it would provide full support. Lastly, I am just a minor character, without even a specific destined path. Simply put, I'm just a passerby, and even if I change everything, it won't affect this world. Aji enthusiastically persuaded, presenting all sorts of plans and futures. It gripped my hand with determination. I remained silent, unmoved. For me personally, Lucius was just a regular classmate. I didn't want to take on this task, nor did I believe I was capable of it. If he could eliminate the female lead, he could perfectly well eliminate me. Moreover, salvation was too great a burden. Helping others is also helping oneself. I refused Aji's invitation. It pleaded with me for a while, finally having to give up. My life continued steadily, repeating every day between 3 places: school, home, and cram school. The only difference came from the people pursuing Lucius, my desk mate. I merely stood outside the fray, quietly observing, keeping everything to myself. My relationship with Lucius remained unchanged, maintaining mutual respect and silent coexistence. This continued until 12th grade, where we were still in the same class. Our homeroom teacher, who had taught us in 11th grade, arranged for Lucius to be my desk mate again. Our relationship remained as before, maintaining a sufficient distance, polite but not overly familiar. Perhaps because the people pursuing him constantly changed, the atmosphere around Lucius seemed much quieter during this time. The pressure from the intense pace of the final year of high school made an average student like me feel quite stressed. I struggled with piles of homework, trying to get through each day. Lucius, on the other hand, received special attention from the teachers, like a national treasure. Everyone understood that he was almost guaranteed a spot in a top university, just waiting for the final exam. 2 weeks before the exam, the school held a graduation photo shoot. Lucius was absent from the event. No one could find him anywhere. Everyone proceeded with the photos as planned, but the graduation photo was missing one person. I had no idea why he was absent. When the exam room assignments were announced, he and I were placed in 2 different locations. On the day of the exam, I unexpectedly ran into Lucius on the bus to the test center. The bus was packed with people, almost all of them test takers. When I boarded, the aisle was completely jammed. Lucius was sitting in the front row. When he saw me, he stood up, offering his seat. I was a little surprised. He silently gripped the handrail, standing next to me. I looked up at him, his gaze swept past me and quickly turned towards the window. The bus swayed, continuing to move. The sky outside darkened, and soon rain began to fall, blurring the bus windows. At the forest stop, Lucius didn't have an umbrella. He didn't hesitate, stepping straight into the rain. I was with a girlfriend who had an umbrella. I watched his solitary figure in the crowd, looked down at the umbrella in my hand, and then suddenly ran after him. I held the umbrella over him. Since he was much taller than me, my arm ached a little. Lucius stopped, bending down to look at me through the raindrops clinging to his face. The hurried footsteps of other test takers echoed around us. The rain grew heavier, but the space under the umbrella seemed to stand still. He said nothing, only his eyes showed a fleeting hint of disturbance. In that moment, I suddenly realized I felt a bit of compassion for him. How strange. When he was injured in a fight, I wasn't moved. Even when I knew he intended to commit suicide at the end of his life, I didn't feel much emotion. Yet at this very moment, just a lonely back made me so deeply stirred. "Take this. Good luck with your exam." I quickly handed him the umbrella and turned back towards my friend. "Consider this umbrella a thank you for offering me your seat." After walking a short distance, I unconsciously turned my head back. In the rain, he was still standing there with the small blue umbrella printed with dandelions. Then, he was gradually obscured by the crowd behind him. I averted my gaze, continuing towards the exam room. At that time, I had no idea that it would be the last time I would see Lucius in my youth. After receiving my diploma and submitting university applications, I no longer had the opportunity to see him. He was originally a quiet person, rarely communicating with anyone, so none of our classmates knew where he had gone. The homeroom teacher also didn't say much, only happily announcing that Lucius had achieved the top position in the province. The announcement echoed throughout the school, and congratulatory banners were strung everywhere. Everyone was happy for the glory, yet regretful that the person who achieved it was absent. Later, I heard that Lucius had been accepted into the country's top university, while I only attended a normal one. From then on, there were no longer any commonalities between us. In my second year of university, I saw the old class group chat abuzz with discussions about him, saying that he had gone to study abroad. Usually, messages in the class group chat were rarely exchanged, and even then, not everyone participated. For example, Lucius and I were still in that group, silently like deep-sea fish. Agi once said that he would create a new era, becoming an outstanding figure. I was a little curious, what kind of era would that be? My life continued, calm and uneventful like everyone else's. In my graduating internship year, a company named Nameless suddenly experienced explosive growth. They announced the successful development of the world's first comprehensive virtual reality game. Within just 2 or 3 years, the game, named Ethereal, created a global sensation, becoming the trend of the era. And the person who created it, Lucius, immediately became a legend. His name echoed everywhere, from media outlets to social networks. Newspapers praised him endlessly with the most prestigious titles. Social media was flooded with miraculous stories and boundless admiration. Along with that, countless rumors emerged. Old acquaintances vied to recount his past stories. I know him, he's the #1 heartthrob at my school. I was in the same class as him. He was an excellent student from a young age. Indeed, knowledge changes the world. I heard his family was very poor, living in the city's worst slum. I'm his neighbor. He used to be a very pitiful person. Lucius's family was dysfunctional, especially his good-for-nothing father. People recounted that during his university days, he had to struggle to make a living. It seems his mother was the sole breadwinner of the family. In the context of rampant information, personal lives were easily brought to light. Rumors about Lucius suddenly spread like a storm online. But not long after, everything suddenly quieted down. All related information seemed to be suppressed. Even so, this did not affect Lucius's reputation. He was still revered as a legend, admired and loved by many. Agi once said that Lucius's family was unhappy but never specified, and this was the first time I learned some details about his family situation. Although the online rumors might be somewhat exaggerated, perhaps 8 or 9 parts of them were true. In my memory, Lucius was always silent, lonely, his eyes filled with sadness, bearing a gloomy and indifferent expression. What had he gone through? Only he understood those pains. Occasionally, I would instinctively look at the calendar on my desk. I didn't know when Lucius would choose to end his life. Would this time be different? Could someone complete the mission? Would he still choose such a tragic end? Would we ever have a chance to meet again? In the hospital, filled with the pungent smell of disinfectant, I held my annual health checkup results, preparing to leave. Standing before the elevator doors, I watched the red numbers blink. It took a long time for the elevator to arrive. When the doors opened, I was completely surprised. In the cold metallic space stood a tall, elegant man in a dignified suit, exuding a sharp, cold aura. Our eyes met. Those eyes were unfamiliar and icy. Yet despite his familiar facial features having lost their youthful innocence, I recognized him immediately. It was Lucius. In that moment, I froze. The elevator doors slowly began to close, but a slender, clean hand reached out to keep them open. The elevator reopened and I stepped in, trying to control my emotions, offering a gentle smile and greeting. "Hello, Lucius. Long time no see." He looked at me unblinkingly, his gaze seeming to waver slightly. 5 silent seconds passed, the space strangely quiet. Just as I thought he might have forgot me, he unexpectedly spoke. "Long time no see, Stella H. Letter 1E1. He pronounced the 3 words, Stella H letter 1EA1, slowly, as if recalling or pondering something. I gently nodded, not saying anything more. It seemed a long conversation was impossible between us. Even a brief greeting had chipped away some of our old student friendship. The silence was familiar but not awkward. 9 years had passed since our last meeting. The young man of that time was now a mature, grown man. I wondered if anyone had fulfilled their dreams. Now that he was successful, did he still harbor negative thoughts about life? My gaze drifted past him, then unconsciously settled on the silver ring on his finger. Are you married? The elevator doors opened, and we both stepped out. I was about to say a polite farewell when Lucius suddenly spoke, stunning me. You don't play ethereal. I pondered the question several times. He didn't ask if I played, but asserted, you don't play. You know, I replied indifferently, not asking about the hidden meaning in his words. I'm not interested in games. I truly had never played ethereal. Not because I wasn't curious, but because it was too expensive. Although VR technology had become popular and an indispensable part of many people's entertainment world, the cost of ethereal was still very high. Not everyone could afford to experience it. I myself wasn't a gamer. This slight interest wasn't enough to make me open my wallet. I preferred buying a few books to read. There were also experience centers, but I had never visited them. But to be asked directly by the game's creator himself. Lucius looked at me, and for the first time I felt awkward standing before him. Fortunately, my phone vibrated, breaking the uncomfortable silence. My ride is here, I'll go first. I answered the call, then turned and left. As I got into the car, I rolled down the window. Lucius also walked out of the building, where a black car awaited him. For a moment, our eyes met, and the dust of time seemed to be blown away. Fragmented memories flooded back, swirling in my mind. The feeling of reunion after many years apart. It was only at this moment that I truly felt it. After meeting Lucius, I had a dream. In the murky darkness of a room, Lucius stood on an open balcony, looking up at the night sky. Soon after, the world shattered and he fell from above. He fell into a bottomless black abyss. He closed his eyes and smiled. Immediately after, I woke up with a start. Before my eyes was the morning light filtering through the window, illuminating my desk. It had all just been a dream. It seemed this was the first time I had seen him in my dreams. Yet the scenes in the dream made my heart heavy and sad. I had a premonition that I would meet Lucius again. Surprisingly, our reunion came much faster than expected. 5 days later, he appeared at the library where I worked. He was dressed simply, wearing sunglasses, unannounced, silently standing beside the bookshelf. At that moment, I was holding a large stack of books, carefully putting them back in their correct places. When I turned around, he was standing directly in front of me. The books in my hands fell to the floor. I stared in shock at the uninvited guest. He bent down to help me pick up the books. Do you need help? Why are you here? Lucius actively seeking me out utterly surprised me. He said he had something to tell me. He helped me reorganize the bookshelf, and I didn't politely refuse his help. The library closed at 8:30, and it was already almost 8:00. The space became eerily quiet. Only the faint scent of paper and ink in the air became more distinct than ever, along with the gentle, fresh fragrance emanating from him. Near the library was a classical-style tea shop specializing in Chinese dim sum. We sat opposite each other. I took a sip of tea and asked, "What did you want to see me about?" Until now, Lucius had been holding a craft paper bag, and now he placed it at the corner of the table. He pushed the bag towards me. "Open it and see." I hesitantly took it, opened the bag, and an object both familiar and foreign appeared before my eyes, like a pebble cast into the lake of memory, stirring ripples in my heart. Inside was a blue folding umbrella, and on its handle was still the green string I had tied years ago. This was the umbrella I had given him on the day of his university entrance exam. I never expected that after all these years, he still kept it, as if just waiting for a day to return it to me. Suddenly, I remembered how I had lent him a pen, and he had eventually returned it too. He never wanted to owe anyone anything, even something small and insignificant. He was considerate, but at the same time, he maintained a certain distance. The umbrella I borrowed back then, I'm returning it to you now. I had never thought I would ask for it back, but at this point, there was no need to say anything. Everything was already clear. I gently nodded. Are you married? I switched to another topic, implying a probe. Had someone perhaps completed the mission? My gaze lingered on the silver ring on his index finger. He also looked at it, then calmly replied, "No, this ring is Ethereal's activation key." I smiled awkwardly. Not only had I never played his game, but I didn't even know about its basic accessories. My teacup was empty. I picked up the pot to refill it and also poured him a cup. Steam rose, mingling with the warm lantern light, somewhat softening the cold, dark aura in Lucius. His finger unconsciously touched the teacup, then he suddenly asked, "Are you living well?" I subtly raised an eyebrow. This question sounded a little strange, or perhaps it was because it came from his mouth that it surprised me. "Very ordinary, but very well," I replied with a smile. He looked at me deeply, then drank his entire cup of tea in one go. Perhaps it was just an illusion, or due to the rising heat, but his eyes seemed a little moist. We didn't have much more to say. The umbrella returned, the tea drunk. He stood up to leave. The library area at night was already deserted, shrouded in darkness. Across the street was a bustling shopping center. Brilliant neon lights illuminated the night sky, yet separated by just one street, they felt like two completely different worlds. Outside the tea shop, under the streetlights, Lucius's retreating figure looked truly lonely and cold. In that moment, I suddenly felt a disruption in time. His silhouette seemed to merge with his appearance all those years ago in the rain. The images from my dream, the moment he fell and left, flooded back into my mind. A pang of sorrow welled up in my chest. I withdrew my gaze, then realized he had left his sunglasses on the table. "Lucius," I called his name. He paused, turning his head to look at me. I rushed over to hand him the glasses. At the same time, I added, "I almost forgot, congratulations on Ethereal, I'll give it a try." 3 days later, I received a package containing a VR headset and Ethereal's ring. The sender's address was Nameless Company. Obviously, Lucius had sent it to me. I chuckled softly. It seemed my financial constraints had been discovered by him. I wanted to send him my thanks, but I had no way to contact him. I followed the instructions and put on the VR headset. The first time I stepped into the world of Ethereal, I felt like I had entered a different, parallel space. Except for the electronic guiding voice in my head and the transparent screen before my eyes, everything else was incredibly realistic, almost unbelievable. Since Ethereal required registration with real personal information, I skipped the account creation phase. Because, in this place, I already had an account. Player 1. So Lucius had once asked me if I had ever played Ethereal. This account, until this very moment, had never been used. In Ethereal, I received 2 letters from Lucius. The first letter was a birthday greeting. This package was the gift he had given me. The second letter was very concise, related to the umbrella from that day. He had always been waiting for me to enter Ethereal to personally return the umbrella to me. He had prepared everything beforehand, only he hadn't expected that I had never set foot in this virtual world. I exited Ethereal and went online to search for related information. An article about Lucius appeared before my eyes. "Mr. Lucius, why is the symbol of Ethereal a blue oil paper umbrella and floating dandelion seeds? What does it signify?" "It's merely an inspiration," the article quoted him. "Many netizens believe it is related to someone you love," the reporter wrote. Mr. Lucius was silent for quite a while, then slowly replied, "I often think of her and my mood improves. I don't know if that can be considered love." I intently stared at those lines, reading them over and over. A powerful shock surged within me. Lucius liked me? How could that be? I abruptly stood up, looking out at the sky where clouds were piling up, lost in a flood of thoughts. Meow. The cat's cry brought me back to reality. I looked down at the grass and saw the familiar chubby golden cat. Aggie, I hadn't seen it for many years. It had returned to me. What was its purpose this time? I intended to open the window to let it in, but as soon as I touched the glass, I suddenly lost control of my weight. I fell to the ground. Something in my body was gradually depleting. Instinct warned me that death was imminent. In a hazy state, I saw Aggie jump through the window and rush towards me. Before my consciousness sank into darkness, I heard its voice. Damn it, still a little too late. When I turned 25 on my birthday, I died. Chaos echoed in my ears, my mind felt heavy. Blurry images gradually became clear. A group of people surrounded me, their lips murmuring, but I couldn't grasp their words. As I regained consciousness, I noticed a young man standing outside the crowd. On the running track, his hair was drenched with sweat, covering his forehead, his deep dark eyes fixed on me, profound as still water, emotions hard to read. I tried to stand up, but my knees ached. My reaction was slow, but enough to stimulate my nerves. Looking down at the bleeding scratches on my knee, my ankle slightly swollen, I observed the young faces around me, next to the PE teacher leading the students. Memories gradually revived. I remember now, this is the 800-meter run test in 12th grade. I had fallen then as I lunged towards the finish line. Had I been reborn? The world's cycle had restarted. But what was the reason? This time, I still retained memories from my previous life. Was this the awakening Aggie had mentioned? I pulled down my pant leg, being helped by a classmate to the healthcare room. As I stepped onto the stairs of the sports field, I turned my head to look towards Lucius. He was ready to start. The whistle echoed. He shot off like an arrow from a bow, heading straight for the finish line. The wind blew his hair. The cheers of the girls rose, mingled with admiration and youthful excitement. For some unknown reason, a wave of sadness washed over me. Would he still end his life? After applying medicine, I returned to class to rest, sitting in my chair and observing my surroundings. Looking at the class schedule pasted on my desk, the next period was self-study. The towering stack of books made me frown, my head aching as if hammered. Why did I have to go through 12th grade again? Did I have to endure this nightmare one more time? I rested my chin, intently looking at the words the teacher had written in chalk on the board, lost in thought. Memories of death in my previous life were still fresh. Was this the destiny of a supporting character? Aggie once mentioned that wanderers don't have their own paths, so death comes randomly, without any warning signs. Even though annual health checkups always showed stable results, when the moment of leaving this world arrived, there was no way to avoid being completely eliminated by the system. The fortunate thing was that I felt no pain at all, as if I had simply fallen into a long sleep. So, what was the reason Aggie suddenly came to see me again? What did its last words imply? I sat in class for about half an hour until the bell rang, and friends gradually returned. Lucius walked in right after the sound, pulling a chair to sit next to me. Upon seeing him again, my mind became a jumble. In my previous life, the last moments were still deeply etched in my memory. To claim I felt no disturbance would clearly be a lie. I couldn't comprehend how someone as ordinary as me, while he was always surrounded by beautiful girls, could be the object of his affection. After class, I didn't rush to leave but lingered in the classroom until the students on duty were about to go home before I started packing up. Due to my injured leg, my movements were slow. I hated being noticed, so I usually waited until fewer people were around before moving. Not far down the stairs, a bicycle blocked my path. A cheerful face with a brilliant smile appeared. It was Asher, the popular boy from the class next door. "Asher, how are you? Can I give you a ride home?" Asher and I lived in the same neighborhood and had known each other since childhood, but weren't particularly close. From kindergarten to high school, we had been in the same class a few times. He was the gentle, attractive type, precisely the kind of person I once had feelings for. However, I had never thought of confessing, nor did I have any plans to pursue him. My feelings for Asher were probably akin to a fan's admiration for a celebrity. I looked at the back seat of his bike, about to nod, when another bicycle sped up. It braked abruptly, a pair of long legs hitting the ground, the wheel blocking Asher's bike. Beneath the brim of a white cap, the person's eyes were fixed on me. "Get on, I'll take you home." I stared in surprise at Lucius, who had appeared unexpectedly, completely unpredicted. Asher chuckled awkwardly. "Oh, someone's waiting for you. I'll get going then." He then pedaled away, leaving me standing there, utterly confused. In this life, was my relationship with Lucius that intimate? In the end, I still got on the back of Lucius's bike. On the street, pedestrians strolled by, darkness fell quickly, and the streetlights flickered on simultaneously. His uniform jacket was unbuttoned, puffed up by the wind, the hem gently brushing my face. The scent of laundry detergent wafted. Looking at Lucius's back, memories of him in the rain and his faint silhouette under the tea shop lights reappeared in my mind. A wave of sorrow surged. He had once stood at the pinnacle of glory, with everything in his hands, so why did he still choose to end it all? As the bike neared my apartment complex, I got off and softly thanked Lucius. "Stella H letter 1EA1, you?" He seemed to want to say something but hesitated. Finally, he just said, "See you tomorrow." I frowned, scrutinizing him. The brim of his cap obscured most of his face, but his eyes were unusually bright. The Lucius I knew had never looked at me with such eyes, such a sincere and focused gaze. Too much had happened today. I needed time to think. I replied, "Okay, see you tomorrow." With that, I turned and walked away, but I still felt his gaze following my back, making me uncomfortable. I looked back. Lucius was still there. He was watching me. When he saw me turn back, he quickly pulled down his cap and swiftly rode off into the night. In this life, I hadn't yet re-encountered any task-doers, nor had Agi appeared. The banyan tree at the fork in the road home was still as lush as ever, only the familiar orange-golden figure was gone. Agi, will it come back? My heart held countless questions, but the only one who could answer them all, Agi, was nowhere to be found. Lucius had also changed. His boredom and weariness seemed to have vanished. Previously, he was like a withered tree, scorched dry by the sun. Now he was like a deep, bottomless lake. No one could guess what lay hidden within. The way he treated me was also different. Just now, when I was wiping the blackboard on duty, he proactively came to help me clean it. I reminded him, "It's my turn today, tomorrow is yours." "You can't reach the top, I'll help you," he replied naturally and straightforwardly. I began to suspect that after each world reset, the personalities and relationships between characters also underwent subtle changes. This time, Lucius was no longer as unapproachable as before. From his school bag, he pulled out a book, and at the same time, a carefully folded piece of white paper accidentally slipped out from inside the cover. Seeing his bewildered expression, it must have been a love letter secretly placed there by some girl. The paper fell between my feet. I only needed to bend down to pick it up. But just as I was about to, Lucius quickly snatched it away. The decisive action startled me. His expression was a little awkward. I silently walked out into the hallway to get some fresh air. The spring sunlight scattered on me was gentle and warm, not harsh at all. Just then, I had caught a glimpse of a sketch on that thin white paper, a portrait. As soon as I picked up the paper, the corner slightly opened, revealing 3 words. Stella H. Letter 1EA1? That was my name. Suddenly, I remembered Agi's instructions, remembered Lucius from my previous life, remembered his answer in that interview. My chest felt heavy, as if weighed down by something. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled. I always encountered Lucius in my dreams. In my dreams, I witnessed him die in countless situations, but always with a smile. I must have wavered. Could I continue to stand by indifferently, observing? But what could I possibly do? How could I change his suicidal outcome? Soon after, the graduation photo shoot day arrived. The teacher gathered the class, lining us up for the photo. I saw Lucius receive a phone call, then he left the line and disappeared. In my previous life, he was absent from this graduation photo. Perhaps it was because of this call. The school gates were strictly controlled. Students couldn't leave freely during class hours. So where did he go? I watched his figure as he headed towards the overgrown forest behind the school. What was Lucius doing there? The class president's urging echoed in my ears, forcing me to follow everyone downstairs. At the photo spot, everyone took the opportunity to capture memorable moments with their phones while waiting. I, however, had no interest, only focusing on the clock on my phone. Finally, I turned and ran straight towards that forest. Just as I rounded a corner, I bumped into Lucius. He caught me before I fell, but immediately let go very quickly, his ears slightly red. I was panting, and behind him I saw the disciplinary teacher leading several students towards the faculty office. Among them was a notorious delinquent student, always causing trouble. "Are you okay?" I looked at Lucius, seeing he didn't appear injured. "You knew I was here." Facing his suspicious gaze, I gently nodded. "Just now I saw you heading this way, and the photo was about to be taken, but you still hadn't returned, so I came to look for you. It's good you're okay. Let's go." Just as I was about to turn away, Lucius's voice echoed from behind me. "Why did you come looking for me?" "Why? Because I can't seem to ignore your life and fate anymore." The wind blew from behind, scattering my stray hairs to brush against my eyelashes. I softly said, "I'm worried about you." Returning to the photo spot, I managed to join the class graduation photo. The teacher and class president loudly told everyone to line up. I quickly squeezed into an empty spot. Lucius stood right behind me. When I looked into the camera lens, a memory suddenly flooded my mind. In my previous life, Lucius was not present in this photo. The next day, I noticed new injuries on his hands. That delinquent student I remember was expelled later. In this world, Lucius also separated from everyone to meet that guy. But this time, he returned safely, while the delinquent was caught by the disciplinary teacher on the spot. And his changes, too. His attitude towards me, all these fragmented pieces suddenly connected, forming a clear clue. Could it be that Lucius, like me, had remembered everything? The photographer took a few shots, then signaled he was done. The teacher stood up and dismissed the students so another class could come in. A few female friends pulled me to a corner to take pictures together. Lucius stood in the shade on the opposite side. Around him, not a few girls were eager to take pictures with him. After taking a few photos, I heard Asher's laugh. I walked closer, smiled, and offered, "Can I take a picture with you?" Asher happily agreed. "Certainly." I handed my phone to another friend to take the photo, then stood next to Asher, making a peace sign. "Remember to send me a copy later, okay?" I nodded, smiling. "I know, or how about we take one too?" I didn't know when, but Lucius was standing behind me, a hint of anticipation in his eyes. "Yeah, okay." We stood next to each other, creating a small gap. Because I had a premonition that he remembered everything, I unconsciously turned my head to look. As if sensing my gaze, he also looked down at me. The moment our eyes met, his eyes wavered slightly, only looking away a few seconds later. The photographer returned my phone, excitedly exclaiming, "This one is absolutely perfect." On the screen, the moment we looked at each other had been perfectly captured. I saved Lucius's phone number and sent him the photo. He held his phone, looking at it for a very long time. I noticed a slight smile on his lips. The next day at school, I made an excuse to go to the teacher's office to ask for a practice exam paper. I coincidentally met the disciplinary teacher drinking tea. "Good morning, sir." He nodded lightly at me. I took a few steps forward and said, "Yesterday, my classmate Lucius was almost bullied in the forest behind the school. Luckily, you arrived in time to help. I'm truly grateful to you, sir. Lucius is my desk mate, and I was very worried about him." The disciplinary teacher's face immediately became serious. He scolded those thugs fiercely and then told me, "Fortunately, Lucius called me beforehand. He called me H1E1." Through my conversation with the disciplinary teacher, I partly understood what had happened yesterday. A classmate, quite close to Lucius, had invited him out. But Lucius noticed something unusual in the other person's voice, sensed that something was wrong, and proactively contacted the disciplinary teacher beforehand. The teacher had taught him before and had even visited his home, so he still had his contact number. The disciplinary teacher sighed when mentioning the home visit. I carried the test paper back to my seat, and the things I had just heard gradually connected in my mind. Clearly, something had happened. In the previous life, Lucius had been betrayed by that friend. So this time, he had proactively made arrangements to retaliate. His memories had indeed recovered. He remembered everything that had happened in his previous life. Could the disappearance of the task doers and Agi be related to his memories? Lucius had returned with his memories. Would he destroy this world again this time? June arrived, the university entrance exam season. This time, I didn't coincidentally meet Lucius on the bus. The weather remained gloomy, with incessant rain. On the last day, after the exam finished, I waited at the bus stop for a long time, but the bus still didn't come. It must have been due to the university exams that the roads were congested today. I opened the map app to check. If I walked home using a shortcut, it would probably only take about half an hour. Who knew that halfway there, I would realize I had taken the wrong path and gotten lost. I sighed, stopped at a roadside convenience store, bought an ice cream bar and a few lollipops, then turned back to find my way home. This shortcut led through an old residential area. While checking the map and eating ice cream, as I turned down a few small alleys, I suddenly heard a cat meow. An orange-yellow cat was sitting on a fence wall. Its fur was soaked. I tried calling Agi. The cat looked at me, then jumped to the ground and ran away. I quickly chased after it but couldn't find it. Instead, I saw a familiar person. Outside a wall covered in ivy, a young man was standing without an umbrella, letting the pouring rain drench him. Seeing me, he smiled. I approached and held the umbrella over him. "Why are you here? Do you like standing in the rain?" He always appeared before me looking so pitiable and helpless, making one feel sorry for him. I was talking to Lucius when I realized he was staring at me, the corners of his eyes gradually reddening. He mouthed something, his gentle voice echoing amidst the falling rain. "Stella H1E1, do you know? I've always been waiting for you. I once thought if you didn't appear I would give up everything, I wouldn't bother you anymore. But if you've already appeared, then could I ask you for a little more?" I stepped back, frowning. "Lucius, what do you mean? I don't understand." Lucius unexpectedly turned, pushing me against the wall. In his deep eyes, there was both pleading and yearning. "Stella H1E1, please, don't like anyone else." His hand gently touched my cheek, his eyelashes trembling. In that close proximity, his gaze contained sadness, love, longing, and yearning. For a moment, countless fragmented memories flooded back, making it hard to breathe. I don't know where I found the strength, but I pushed Lucius hard to the ground and hurriedly ran away. The rain persisted. I ran forward, while the boy behind me stood still, clenching his hands into fists. Back home, as soon as I opened my room door, I saw Agi curled up on my chair. "We meet again, Stella H. letter 1E1. I approached, squatted down, and stared at it. "So it was you, the cat that led me to Lucius. Why?" Agi calmly licked its paw and replied, "It's a long story. I'll show you something. You'll understand after you see it." With that, Agi opened its mouth and exhaled an ethereal ball of light that flew towards me, then gradually dissolved into the center of my forehead. I had a very long, very chaotic dream. The first scene in the dream was a damp, gloomy, rainy day. That day was the last day of the university entrance exam. After finishing the last subject, I turned, not wanting to take the bus. I skirted around large and small puddles on my way home. Wanting to take a shortcut, I turned into an old residential area. In a small alley, a young man leaned against an ivy-covered wall. He hung his head, letting the rain pour down, completely motionless. I held an umbrella, stopping at the alley's entrance for a few seconds. Perhaps my gaze was too obvious. The young man suddenly lifted his head. That face was very familiar, my desk mate, Lucius. I turned away, not stepping forward, but continued walking. As I passed a small convenience store, I suddenly paused. I bought another umbrella and then turned back into that alley. I squatted in front of Lucius, holding the umbrella over him. Raindrops pattered on the umbrella's surface. Lucius slowly raised his head, his eyes vacant. His naturally pale face under the cold rain became even more distant. "Are you okay?" I broke the silence, asking. He looked at me, then suddenly offered a chilling smile. He said, "He's dead." Lucius pointed at himself. "The person called the biological father of this body. Do you know, I'm so happy." He smiled, but tears silently streamed down his face. Witnessing the suppressed emotions in his eyes, I slowly said, "Don't stand in the rain anymore, you'll harm yourself. If you catch a cold, you'll have to see a doctor and buy expensive medicine." Perhaps my words were too out of place, making Lucius stare blankly. "Don't you think I'm cruel, terrifying? I don't know much about your family, nor can I fully understand the true feelings in your heart, so I'm not qualified to judge you." I opened the new umbrella, placed it over his shoulder, then stood up and said, "There's a 24-hour convenience store up ahead. If you don't want to go home, go there. Don't stay in the rain anymore. I'll be going now." I turned and slowly left the small alley. The scene abruptly changed. I saw adult Lucius standing in a tea house. His fingertips gently traced a picture of me. Behind him appeared a long-haired woman in a black dress. "Does it hurt? Do you want to save her and change her fate?" It turned out that the woman was the transmigrator, the one who had usurped the female lead's identity. The supporting male character had died. She believed it was a consequence of her interference with fate. She hoped Lucius would help her. She revealed her identity as a transmigrator and the secret that Lucius was the true center of this world. She told Lucius that my death was due to her interference. Because she had taken the female lead's position, she couldn't avoid fate's arrangements, which forced her to meet Lucius at fixed times. To escape the bonds of fate, she had devised countless methods. Coincidentally, once I had replaced her, appearing at the exact moment she was supposed to meet Lucius. She discovered that as long as someone else stepped into the female lead's path, she would no longer be controlled by fate. Therefore, every time Lucius and I accidentally met, it was her subtle arrangement behind the scenes. My true nature was originally indifferent and cold. All the actions I directed towards Lucius were purely out of natural kindness. To me, they were utterly insignificant, but ironically, they became the only warming flame in his life. This led him to develop feelings and an obsession for me. After graduating in the first world, we often kept in touch through letters. 6 months after Ethereal launched, Lucius had asked to meet me. I accepted the invitation but then didn't show up. The next meeting took place at my own funeral. The transmigrator told Lucius that if something unexpected happened to him, this world would be destroyed. The deity would appear and save the world. Everything could start over from the beginning. I could also return to my original position. Lucius had nodded in agreement. In the second world, the third world, I was still discarded by the world and died. The moment I passed away, Lucius would recover his memories from the previous life. The accumulating pain tormented him to the extreme. Finally, he realized. My death had absolutely nothing to do with the transmigrator. In this world, I was inherently destined for an early demise. He looked up at the sky, silent for a very long time, a cruel smile suddenly curling on his lips. Moments later, the entire world shook and began to disintegrate. The moment I opened my eyes, tears streamed down, unstoppable. "You two have met, haven't you?" I asked Agi, my throat choked, my voice hoarse. "Yes, he made a pact with the high deity that he would continue to exist so this world would operate as before, on the condition that you live a peaceful, happy life. He wished for you to have a smooth, joyful, and serene life for all eternity." The deity had agreed. In previous lives, Agi had noticed me. It, along with the task doers, continuously analyzed each world, searching for the reason Lucius committed suicide. It discovered that in any world, immediately after my death, Lucius would promptly take his own life. Therefore, it had sought me out, but it was a step too late. Agi stood up, shook its fluffy fur, and muttered, "Good heavens, I brought you to him, told you the truth so you would understand what he sacrificed." I absolutely hate this damn tragic aesthetic. I reached out and stroked Agi's fur, which was bristling with agitation, crying and smiling at the same time. "Agi, thank you for letting me know. So every time he committed suicide, it was for me. Every time he bore the pain of loss, it was also for me. He continuously destroyed himself, in exchange for the chance to converse with the Almighty, hoping for one last gamble. Who would have thought that the person he always saved was me?" On graduation photo day, I met Lucius again. This time, he stood on the auditorium stage, receiving applause from everyone. After the ceremony, I chased after his figure but couldn't find him. I walked through the classroom hallways, wondering where he could be. As I turned down the stairs, I saw him standing there, one foot already on a step. He looked up, his silent black eyes fixed on me. I walked down step by step, standing opposite him. "That day, I scared you. I'm sorry." He lowered his head, concealing his deep emotions. I bit my lip, my eyes burning. "Who gave you permission to casually use your life to atone for my sake?" Lucius suddenly looked up at me. "You know everything?" I met Agi. His eyes looked at me with tenderness. "It has nothing to do with you. It was my own will." "How can it have nothing to do with me? Every moment he died, I witnessed it clearly." The image of him smiling, jumping into the abyss without hesitation, was etched into my heart, every single mark. Do you know? In the previous life, because I refused Agi's offer, I tormented myself so much with sorrow. You made me feel truly terrible about myself. I rushed forward and hugged him tightly, burying my face in his shoulder, my hot tears soaking through his shirt. Lucius raised his hand, gently patting my back. "Stella H1E1, don't cry." "Lucius, thank you." Initially, I didn't want to say thank you, because it felt too light. But then I realized, besides those two words, I couldn't give him anything else. I had only accidentally given him one piece of candy, yet he repaid me with his entire life. Today was winter solstice, the air filled with the aroma of dumplings and glutinous rice balls. My roommates, some from the south, some from the north, gathered to celebrate the festival together. This was my first year of university. Lucius and I were studying in two different cities. After that frank conversation, we hadn't officially become a couple. I needed time to give him an answer. At that time, my heart was truly in a state of confusion. I wasn't sure if my feelings for him were compassion, sympathy, or true love. We often communicated via text messages, sharing small things from our daily lives. Mostly he told his stories, and I told mine. There was rarely a continuous conversation, more like a way to share life. Strange but very harmonious. Just as I picked up a perfectly white glutinous rice ball, before I could even eat it, my phone rang. I stared blankly at the caller ID on the screen, my hand trembling slightly with anticipation. For the past 6 months, Lucius and I had only texted back and forth, never called. This was the first time he had called me. Picking up the phone, my palm felt hot despite the bitter cold of winter. "Hello? Stella H1E1, I've come to find you. I'm standing outside the dormitory." I hurriedly put on a warm coat. As I reached the door, I noticed the blue scarf hanging on the bed frame, so I grabbed it. Rushing downstairs, as soon as I stepped out, I saw Lucius wearing a puffer jacket, standing right in front of me. He was truly very striking. He stood out wherever he was. It was very cold, and snow had been falling continuously for several days. His hair and shoulders were covered in white snowflakes. Although the two cities weren't far apart, it still took over 3 hours to travel. I knew clearly why he was here. "Are you cold?" I stood on my tiptoes, brushing the snow from his hair. "Cold," he replied, looking straight at me, his eyes full of warmth. "Stella H1E1, happy birthday." Today was winter solstice, also my birthday, and also the day I had promised to give him an answer. You didn't really need to come all this way, it's so cold. It's okay, I wanted to see you. I draped the scarf I was holding around his neck. The scarf looked ordinary on me, but when he wore it, it exuded a special charm. His gaze was fixed on my face, making me feel a little self-conscious. I cleared my throat slightly. If there's something you want to say, just say it. Don't look at me like that. Lucius chuckled softly, gently stroking my head. Stella H. letter 1EA1, can you only like me? Yes, I can, I replied without hesitation. Immediately, he pulled me into a hug, a sigh of relief echoing in my ear. He was clearly covered in snow, separated by thick layers of clothing, yet I felt an unusual warmth in my heart. I like Lucius. The moment I saw him, my heart gave me the answer. He would no longer be alone. I would be by his side.